The weekend of September 16th and 17th, the Presidential Search Committee met with several candidates at what was called a neutral site for neutral site interviews, and that was down at the Pittsburgh International Airport. I think there were, I can't remember now if there were 6 or 7 that we brought in. Amir Mohammadi was one of those people. At each interview, there was one person who was consistently on the telephone. I don't know if the person was texting, I don't know what they were doing, but it was incredibly distracting to search committee members, but then also to the interviewees, and it was embarrassing. That's just my own thing. I don't take my phone to class. I don't think it's appropriate, so whatever. On the late in the day on the 16th, we were getting ready to interview Dr. Mohammadi, and we had, typically the way it worked was that we would have the interview with the candidate would leave, we would do a quick debrief, have a break, come back and do a quick, pull ourselves together, and the next candidate would come in. So we finished with the candidate, we did a debriefing, we took a break, and we're all gathering back for Dr. Mohammadi's interview, and there's one person who's not there. And so we're looking, and we're like, wow, I wonder where he went. And he never indicated to us that he was leaving. He never said goodbye. He just didn't show up for that last interview of the day. Very, very disconcerting. The next day, that individual was also late in the morning, so he did not get to hear the updates of reference checks for the candidates for that day. And when we finished all of the interviews for that day, that person made the statement, as we were conferring who we're going to bring onto campus, "You better not bring Amir. It'll be bad if you bring Amir." And I'm sitting there and said, "Excuse me? What do you mean it'll be bad?" "It'll be bad." Well, could you please explain what you mean by that? I don't have to explain myself. I just said, don't bring him. Don't put his name forward. In my opinion, I was being bullied and threatened that if I recommended Amir Mohammadi, that something bad would happen. I was appalled. I felt bullied. And it was not right. It wasn't professional. That person used a position of power, in my opinion, to intimidate the rest of the committee. The 9 employees who work at Slippery Rock University, faculty, staff, administrators, the 9 of us wrote a letter to the state system of higher education outlining the disconcerting behaviors, outlining the unprofessional behaviors, and asking for that person to be removed from the committee because we felt that he was trying to impact, using his power to try to impact the decision. Obviously that didn't happen. Fast forward to October 6th, I was actually out of town. I was in Georgia for a conference, and I got a phone call from someone on the Presidential Search Committee, very, very upset because Mr. Taylor had distributed a letter that was addressed not only to the Council of Trustees, but to the Governor, the Attorney General, and the Pennsylvania State Board of Ethics, accusing Molly Mercer and Scott Albert of conflicts of interest and therefore breaching ethics because Amir Mohammadi was a direct supervisor of those folks. Now, let me just say that had been a concern of both Scott and Molly from day one, as soon as we knew that Amir was a candidate. And both of them, individually and together at several different meetings of the committee, which Bob Taylor was absent for, voiced their concerns, and in fact, they called the state system, they called the chancellor's office and sought counsel about whether or not they should continue because they felt uncomfortable. They were instructed, basically. They were told, there has been precedent. This has happened before. You're not doing anything wrong. In fact, we want your opinion as people who have worked for this person. We want to know how you think about him. Please don't step down. That came as a directive from the Vice Chancellor's office, and the Chancellor was obviously aware of the situation as well. So for Mr. Taylor to then just, throw this letter out at the last moment, kind of deflected from the task at hand, I think, which was the advancement of the two candidates. Sounds familiar, deflecting attention by a bully. Boy, that sounds familiar to me. You know what I'm saying? I was really angry and really upset, and we wrote another letter to the Council of Trustees asking for them to vindicate Scott and Molly, which they did, which also the chairperson of the Council of Trustees did. Meanwhile, Bob Taylor writes this big letter to the Rocket. Oh, we just came through a bad time, but we'll get through it. He is such a jerk. The reason we had a bad time was because of him not attending meetings and therefore not being fully informed, his unprofessional behavior of leaving, not even attending a person's interview for what reason we don't know. There's debate about why he didn't do that too. I'm not going there. So a lot happened before October 6th. And a lot is going to happen next week when we have the meeting. I guess today the final person will be appointed to the committee, and there are some things that members of the committee feel have to be said out loud and put in writing before the committee can progress. It's not acceptable for a person to not be present for an applicant's interview and then be part of the decision-making process. That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for a person to miss parts of meetings and miss important information and then accuse colleagues of something that is slanderous. In my opinion, it was slanderous. And it could have, had it gone to the Ethics Commission, it had the potential, if they, were found to have breached ethics, for particularly Molly Mercer to have lost her job. She's a CPA. She could have lost her certification, And he has no, first of all, he was wrong. What he said was false. He ignored a whole big piece of the information. He didn't have that piece because he wasn't present at the meetings. And now he's going to see, the last thing he said, let it go on record that the Council of Trustees is for the students and we want a student person on this committee. He can grandstand all he wants. He does not have the best interests of the students in mind. Otherwise, he would have not tried to impact the presidential search process and would have allowed it to flow as it is designed to flow. I don't know what his motivation is. It's not about the students. He never talked about the students. He talked about one particular candidate who he did not want us to put forward, period. What's the motivation? I can't tell you. I don't know. It's not even important to me. Well, it is a little bit important. But what's more important is going forward. We need to find a good president for the university who is going to pay attention to and work for in the interest of the students and other stakeholders of Slippery Rock University. So the students and the faculty. Frankly, I don't care what the race or ethnicity or gender is of that person. I don't care what their orientation is. I don't care about that. I want the best person for Slippery Rock University. I don't know that I can say the same for every other member of the Presidential Search Committee. The people that I hang with, we all want that.